Welcome to the Business Blueprint, where entrepreneurs and business leaders learn how to work smarter, scale faster, and build better.
Well, welcome to another episode of the Business Blueprint. I am your host, Joe Sandin. It is 4th of July week, so quick plug I want to make for Medora. So I'll be heading out to Medora actually this afternoon for the Teddy Roosevelt Presidential Library opening. I think it's getting dedicated tomorrow, and Trump will be there. And there'll be a ton of festivities going on all week. So I'll be out there with the family all week and then coming back on the 4th of July. So if you haven't been to Medora or haven't been there for a while, it's a great time to go check it out. It's a beautiful old Western town. And with the new library, it's just, there's a lot going on in Medora. So I just want to make a plug there quick. So today, my guest in the studio is James Hendricks. So James is the founder of Prism Financial. He grew up in Bemidji, Minnesota, and he came to Fargo to attend NDSU, where he earned his degree in business management in 2019, if I'm not mistaken. He began his career with Northwestern Mutual, and then in 2023, he launched Prism Financial, building his own financial planning practice while continuing to leverage the resources and the platform of Northwestern Mutual. James helps individuals, families, and business owners make smart financial decisions for the long term. James is also a husband and a father to a 1-year-old daughter, and it sounds like he has another child soon on the way here. So James, welcome to the Business Blueprint.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, so I want to start, I want to go back and learn a little bit about you. So let's start. So you grew up in Bemidji. I'm just curious, what kind of kid were you, and what did you think you would become when you were an adult?
Oh boy, I was, I'd like to say a good kid. My parents would maybe disagree, but I was the youngest of 3. We were a sports-driven family, that's for sure. So we were super active. My sister led the way as the oldest. My brother was in between us, and we were always active. We were playing sports. My dad was the football coach when we were super young, and then he took a stint in some private business and then got back into it when my brother and I got to high school. So sports driven, family was definitely a big deal. We were super close with our cousins. We were running around. I think I really truly don't know if I had any idea who I thought I would become or what I thought I wanted to do. The molding of athletics, I'd say the best thing that it did for me was it molded me into, the man that can make some of those decisions once I got through college. But I wasn't really sure at the beginning, but I was probably a fun, wild little one that led into a Fargo life following NDSU and led me here.
So I'm the youngest of 4, and being the youngest of 3, I always like to ask people who are the youngest, how do you think that shaped who you are today, being the youngest in your family?
Oh gosh, I think you get a little bit of both siblings, or for you probably a little bit all 3 of your older siblings. I think it's unique, the relationship that I have with my brother versus my sister. I think in different ways, it's we're closer in ways and further apart in others. But I think being able to see experiences at a super young age, see how my brother and sister handled certain decisions, it made it, I feel like in an indirect way, made me a little bit more capable to make some of the decisions moving forward. Is whether it's what you do when you're growing up, what you're doing when you choose colleges, having the older siblings always there making decisions before you was something you always looked at. But then also the sibling part of it is, you probably get a little tougher because they're always picking on you. And so that was definitely part of it.
Cool. All right. So you made the decision to come to Fargo and attend NDSU. How'd you make that decision? Why NDSU? Why Fargo?
Honestly, just for the simple answer was just the football program and the status it was at the time. I just remember being a junior in high school, coming on a visit to NDSU, and it was like, wow, that'd be really cool to play there. But my dad played Division II football, my brother played Division III. I thought that's where I was going, and then once an offer came, it was pretty easy to make the decision strictly based on the quality of people that were here and the program you were committing to. And so, kind of blind faith, really wasn't necessarily sure if it was the right decision or not at the time. It was more of make the decision and then make it work thereafter. So it was an easy decision, but primarily just on what the status of the football program was at the time.
And do I have it right? Your major was business management. Is that correct?
Correct. Yep.
So how'd you pick that lane from a major perspective?
Yeah, once again, following your older siblings, right? I think I saw what my parents were doing, and they were in academics, and neither of my older siblings went into that. My sister went into the medical field, and my brother went into the business field, and I just felt like I was much more relating to the business side of things, and I wanted the open architecture of being able to make a decision after college of what I wanted to do, whether that was entrepreneurial, whether that was being an employee or an executive or whatever that looked like. I knew that I saw my brother make those decisions and then what it led him to, and it just felt like the right path for me. But once again, following the older siblings, seeing how they make decisions and seeing what you relate to.
So being a business management major, you can obviously, there's probably a lot of flexibility to that, a lot of areas you can go into.
100%.
So how did you transition to kind of deciding that financial planning was maybe something you wanted to pursue?
Yeah, I think a little bit of luck, right? I think it's the biggest thing that I think college brought to me was connections and the ability to engage with people who are successful and in certain fields when you're in college. And I had met Derek Dinger when I was a junior in college, and he's now the managing partner in the Northwestern Mutual office. Mm-hmm. And at that time, I don't know if I was even considering financial planning. I'd heard that it might be a good fit of what people around me said I was good at, but I had no idea what that even meant. And really connecting with an individual like Dinger, having the ability to have him share the vision of what he saw the career possibly being for someone like myself, and having trust in that. There wasn't really too many careers I was really considering. I was considering staying in the football world or getting into the business world, and the financial planning was really something that just fell into place, probably out of luck and meeting the right person at the right time, but and then making it work once again after you make it.
So if I remember you right, you told me did you intern with Northwest Mutual?
Correct. Yep.
As a junior?
As a junior, I started interning there, and that's when I had met Derek Dinger and Logan Dosh is another individual. And basically by the time I was done playing, I either knew I was wanting to play, which wasn't going to happen because I really was an unathletic defensive safety in football, but then it was going to be either coaching or by the end of my senior year, I knew it was going to be either coaching or financial planning. And I also knew that if it was going to be in this industry, it was going to be with Northwestern Mutual, just due to the architecture that they have. It fit my personality versus others.
So I did a previous episode, and we talked a lot about the value of internships. Can you tell us your take on the value of your internship and how that helped you?
It was incredible, man. I think it was incredible due to the fact that it made me uncomfortable every single day. It forced me out of my comfort zone. You get in your routine as a college kid, and you're with your friends. You might talk to professors, you might talk to other people, but you're really not uncomfortable a lot. And the internship really helped me to get into a professional setting, see how conversations are really had, see what works, what doesn't, and puts you out of your comfort zone. And then also it allowed me to connect with professionals that aren't maybe in the industry that I was in. I interned as a financial planner, but I was also talking to insurance people. I was talking to, business owners, and I was really kind of seeing while I was interning and in a role of working in my position, I was also seeing what these other industries were like. And so it allowed me to step out of my comfort zone and really see what's out there and see what would maybe be a fit for myself.
Okay, so you graduated. I'm assuming you went straight to Northwest Mutual.
Correct.
And that would have been 2019, 2020? 2020
yes,
probably, right?
2020.
And then in 2023, you started Prism Financial.
Yep.
What was going on in your life at that point where you decided I want to start my own name and
that's
my own
a good
brand?
question. When you start out with Northwestern Mutual, you really start out transactionally selling. Mm-hmm. You solve problems that are very surface level and very tactical. And I think the more that we got into it, the more we were seeing unique situations that called for planning. And we really realized that the more successful the individual and the more that families had going on in their life, intellectually they could do everything we were doing, but there was a lack of coordination and therefore a lot of missed opportunity. And so we kind of just shifted our whole team, and I built a team around how we can service people that intellectually they can do what we can do, but we're the ones that are going to hold them accountable and make sure that there's no missed opportunity and lack of efficiency in their plan. And it tends to work really well with business owners. We work a lot with athletes and coaches, and we work just a lot with people that are nearing retirement. And so we just shifted our whole team to that, and that's really what brought Prism Financial to the table.
Sure. Well, great. Perfect time for a break. So when we come back, we're going to visit more with James about Prism Financial and understand everything they do as a business. You're listening to the Business Blueprint. Well, hello and welcome back to the Business Blueprint. I'm your host, Joe Sandin. Today in the studio, we have James Hendricks, who's the founder of Prism Financial. And in the first episode, we got to know James a little bit, his background, his life in sports, going to NDSU, getting married up here, having one kid with one on the way. But now I want to jump into James's business a little bit and talk about Prism Financial. So James, just give us kind of the initial, what is Prism Financial and what encompasses everything that you do for business owners?
Yeah, so Prism Financial is a wealth management firm at our core. We specialize in planning with business owners and pre-retiree individuals, as well as really any good people too. You know, we don't really only work with business owners and pre-retirees, but we're a comprehensive financial planning firm. We have a large capacity of how we can help individuals not only in their business but also in their personal life and their estate plan too. And so, as I said previously, when I started out, you just try to figure out really what you're good at and who you relate to. And we really found that we have a specific capacity to work with business owners and people with a lot of things going on in their life, because there's a lot of tax inefficiency in those individuals' plans and in those businesses. And we have the capacity, being affiliated with who we are with Northwestern Mutual, to do a lot of things, but while also being completely independent and be our own operating entity. So that's where Prism Financial came from, is being able to really target those individuals that have a lot of things going on in their life and they don't want to take the time to do everything themselves. And so we try to be a strategic thought partner and wealth planner for them.
So what's the process normally look like? So just take me, for example, I get connected with you. I'm looking for help in that area. What do you take me through kind of the process you would walk somebody through and what that looks like?
So the biggest thing that we tell people is we're just people trying to work with people, and preferably good people trying to work with good people. And what that means is our initial step in any process with any person that we would consider bringing on to our client list is having a conversation and just really seeing if we're a fit, seeing what you're looking for, and then seeing if you guys are a good fit for us. And sometimes, for some individuals, it's just a full comprehensive plan on everything. Sometimes there's one or two things within the business that are really urgent that we really need to take care of, that maybe are more unique and situational, that we'll just figure out that might be the first place that we need to start. And then we'll see if we expand our relationship thereafter. So really it starts with just having a conversation, seeing if we're a fit, seeing if you think we're a fit, and vice versa. And then going from there and really targeting the conversation after that.
So what's the makeup of your team look like today?
Yeah, so we have a director of operations, Lexi, on our team. She's been with me since really a year before we actually started Prism. So she's been with me for 4 years. And then we have two financial planning services team members. And that's our team today. We're really actively scaling into what we really need to bring on from a new employee standpoint. And so whether that looks like another advisor or whether that looks like another investment operations person, but we're a team of 4 total and growing and just trying to figure out where we need to grow to.
So talk about that process a little bit. So you started, you interned at Northwest Mutual, you graduated college, so you really got into this in 2020. Getting to a point, how do you go from being an independent, individual financial planner to building a business? And like what were the steps you took and what was that process like?
Yeah, I'd say at the surface, it's a lot of visioning too, a lot of goal setting and a vision of what are we really trying to build. I think there's the ability to make it a practice where you're just essentially working to the point of making income. And I had zero interest in that. That begins to be very transactional. Like I said, you operate off of what do you need versus what can you do, what can you build, and who can you service. And so our vision was we wanted to build a team. And so it just is a lot of leaps of faith too. When you don't have a ton of recurring revenue, and you're building a team, you just have to essentially bet on yourself and bet on your team that, you know what, we need to build a service model that's best for our clients, and the business will grow thereafter. And so it's been a process. You know, I would say the last year has been a really, really good position where we're finally, I'd say, at a standpoint where we can now take the next step and continue to scale. But it was a lot of taking risks, but educated risk, and really keeping our clients at the forefront.
So who was your first hire beyond yourself? What was the first step you took?
So Lexi was my first hire 4 years ago. And so she was a big step, because really what I wanted to do is, she was at a current job at a lender in town, and I knew operationally she would be able to handle everything and do it really, really well, and kind of just be my second chair in everything that we did. And so she took a little bit of a chance as well, coming over, and we really didn't want to cheap out on that hire either. And that's one thing that we see people making a mistake on is pay people what they're worth, and that'll come back tenfold, and instead of trying to just nickel and dime your employees. And so that was a big first step, and to see how that allowed us to grow, a leap of faith, but then also seeing it come to fruition has been really, really beneficial.
So you're 3 to 4 years into this process. What have you learned? What have been some of the aha moments that you've had, whether it's a mistake or a good decision that you made? What have you learned in the process so far?
Yeah, I think a really big learning lesson has been work with people that are a good fit. We don't need to work with everyone. That's kind of a shift that when you're first starting out, you kind of feel like you need the revenue, you need to work with anyone and everyone.
You almost take anything you can get, right?
Yeah, and then it just begins to be, either relationships that cause resentment in the future, or you don't service people the right way, or people don't respect you enough as they should. And so really that's a big part of what we've learned is we work really well with the right people. We don't work very well with everyone, and so really identifying from the get-go, that's why we always have just a open-ended conversation to just start out a relationship, because that's the only way we're going to figure out if this is even worth having more conversations, or can we just, be new friends and go on our way, and we don't have to work together. So that's one of the biggest lessons. And then I'd say the other thing too is hiring is really, really hard. Finding the right people, and, trying to find the balance of hire to a specific role or just hire the right person and we'll figure it out. That's really difficult, and that'll be something that I think we're going to be challenged on at all times, but also, we're excited to just continue to try to bring in good people.
I think you make a good point around, from a client perspective, making sure the fit is there. You don't want to ruin your reputation trying to do something that you're not good at, or working with someone who's not the right fit. And I went through those pains too as a growing business. Like you force a square peg into a round hole sometimes, and it just never works out great. And so sometimes it just takes years to realize that I'm going to be better off finding people that are the right fit and not forcing it, and making sure it's a good mutual relationship. So.
100%. I think you have to experience that too. I probably didn't know 3 years ago who might be a bad fit. I think you're still trying to figure out exactly who you work well with. I think we have a really good understanding of that now. And we're very transparent about that too. Simplicity and transparency is kind of a couple of our values that we bring to the table of, look, at the end of the day, we're going to be completely transparent. We're going to keep things simple, and that's effective. And so, continuing to evolve who we work with will be something we'll do, but it's just got to be the right makeup of both parties.
So there's obviously a lot of financial planners and wealth management firms in the world for people to choose from. So I'm very curious to know, how do you differentiate yourself in wealth management to stand out from your competition?
Yeah, we actually, it's somewhat of a counterintuitive message that we bring to the table. Well, I'd say there's a two-parter. First off, on the business side, there's some really unique things that we're doing that there's not a lot of firms that do it, in the non-qualified executive compensation space, and some tax efficient strategies inside of businesses. That's more niche and more specific, but with the vast majority of our clients, we're actually trying to not make things more complex, not trying to outthink what really is effective. And so we're really trying to have a simple and transparent approach to how we're going to help our clients accomplish what their objectives are. And so making it their objectives, making it their plan, customized to them, but doing it with simplicity versus trying to overcomplicate things and really sound like there's this new best product, new solution, new strategy that no one's ever heard of. We're going to bring it to you. We're actually doing the opposite. We're trying to be fundamental and habitual with what we're doing and keep it simple for clients so that they know what they're doing. And when there is simplicity, then it's easier to be executed. So it's a little bit counterintuitive where we're not necessarily trying to set ourselves apart with crazy strategies. We're actually just trying to, be simple and transparent with what their objectives are and help them accomplish that.
Well, I think in business, if you know what you're doing and you can keep it simple to the customer, that's definitely a winning strategy.
Yeah.
So I like that. All right, well, it's time for a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about how James and his team help business owners build wealth. You're listening to the Business Blueprint. Well, welcome back to the Business Blueprint. I'm your host, Joe Sandin. Today, visiting with James Hendricks, who's the founder of Prism Financial. And James helps families and business owners build wealth. Very broad topic, obviously. So I want to get into it a little bit. I truly want to know, what do you mean at a high level, and what's the portfolio of things that you help people with in terms of building wealth?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that I would say is we are not in the business of accumulating wealth in competition with what our clients are best at. And what I mean by that is a business owner's best and biggest thing that they can be doing is make that business extremely productive and profitable.
Yep.
And so we help clients, number one, with a lot of tax strategy of, okay, how can we be the most effective and tax efficient in whether it be in your business, whether it be outside of your business, whether it be, setting yourself up to be able to mitigate taxes in the future. I'd say we're very proactive with those things. We see a lot of reactionary planning being done on that side of things, whether it be personally or business, where we're always looking at what happened last year and how can we get out of taxes versus what are we causing in the future. And so we're very proactive on those pieces. And so the other piece is we're a financial planning culture at our core. And so what that means is a lot of what we're doing is through analysis and projections and really saying, okay, if we do make some decisions today, we're never shooting blind of where that's going to get us. We're always very intentional about what will this do, how will it move the needle, and how will it impact you in the future. So very broad how we do those things. There's one of the reasons why we affiliate with Northwestern Mutual is because we're completely independent on all things investments, but we also have some unique products and solutions that we can bring to the table by affiliating with the Fortune 100 broker dealer. So we feel like we have a lot of solutions that we can bring to the table.
Yeah, so tax strategy is a very important thing and a very complicated thing. I've learned with my wife being an estate planning attorney. Do you find that families and business owners can tend to make a lot of mistakes when they try to figure that out by themselves?
Yes, and not necessarily due to them making poor decisions, but a lot of it due to lack of coordination and lack of intentionality or taking time to make decisions. So a lot of times it's less about an actual decision that's made. It's more about really not taking the time to make a decision.
Sure.
And so we really think that we can bring a ton of efficiency to the table on the tax side by taking people off the railroad tracks a few times a year and saying, how are things going? What are we doing with retained earnings and profitability and within your personal planning or within your estate plan? You probably hear it from your wife a lot. There's a lot of things that people do today that can be extremely detrimental to their estate plan long term. And so we try to bring all those pieces to the table.
Well, I think it's such an interesting topic because I think a lot of times you can work with a financial planner, and like my argument would be they don't take a holistic view of my entire reality, right? They just want to look at, certain investment vehicles and it's very black and white. And I'm like, no, I really want you to truly understand everything that's going on in my business. So, and that's a big decision. So how do you help business owners in those decisions around, well, should I be investing this money in some vehicle or should I be putting it back into my own business? Do you get deep with them on those decisions?
Yeah, we do. And we probably get deeper on those decisions than most conversations they've had. And the biggest thing that I'd say is we don't operate in a silo or operate in a vacuum, meaning if you look at an individual portfolio in one account, you can look at, okay, how is this portfolio structured? Well, is that really relevant based on the whole universal picture of that client? If their billions, if their business is worth $5 million and they have a couple million of liquidity in there, and we have liquidity outside of the business. We should be looking at everything entirely and then modeling how they should be invested or allocated or where they should be putting dollars, whether it's back into their company, buying equipment, or putting it towards their employees or putting it towards themselves. Should we be gifting? All these different decisions. We're looking at it universally. That's why we think we have a unique advantage, or just we're uniquely qualified to work with people that have a lot of certain things going on, because we're not only looking at their qualified IRA account. We're not only looking at their cash balance. We're looking at everything and how does that really work together? And then also then take it a step further of what is your goals? What's your business succession? What's your future goal of getting your kids involved, or however those conversations need to be brought to the table? We find a lot of them just aren't having the conversations. And so maybe we can be that third party that steps in and helps mitigate those things. So, or moderate those things. So that's really, taking a universal look is really important, not working in a vacuum or in a silo.
Yeah. So when you're looking at everything holistically, there's obviously a lot of bases to cover in someone's entire, business and financial picture. So who are some of the partners that you work with, areas where maybe it's not your expertise, but you've got partnerships that you can bring into the equation to make it successful?
Yeah. So with business owners, it's really important, and really with anybody, an attorney relationship and a CPA relationship. A lot of times people already have these relationships in-house. So we absolutely love coordinating with these professionals. There's a lot of things that we would like to do that we're bouncing off of their head first to see if it makes sense. So we're going to coordinate with attorneys and CPAs that are already in force. We really like working with bankers as well, whether it be through certain areas that we can leverage current assets, or, things that we're managing that they can be utilizing in a more tax efficient manner. So those three professions would probably be the most important. We work a lot with business consultants as well, that maybe be already in the business and understand the business maybe even more than the owner themselves. And, we can coordinate with them on some things that might make the most sense.
So are there any financial myths out there that you wish people would stop believing or stop falling for, that you see a lot in your business?
Yeah, I would say.
I want to hear some of those.
Well, I would say the biggest and most fundamental philosophy that we have is, when it comes to investing in the stock market, is the stock market's going to go up. It's going to go up. It's going to go up. It's going to go up. And then there's going to be a temporary, maybe sharp decline, but always temporary. Mm-hmm. And you just have to wait it out. And so that's not necessarily any groundbreaking thing, but the line, the market's at an all-time high, is so often viewed as a negative. The market's always at an all-time high.
People become afraid and they're like, oh, I need to get out.
Yeah. If you ask people, like, when do you think the market was at an all-time high? They might tell you 20 years ago, but it's literally like probably today. Mm-hmm. And so if we're going to historically look at what has been done, keeping your investments cost effective. You don't need to, recreate the wheel of how investing works. Be in low cost funds and ETFs and invest and really be strategic with where you're putting those dollars and those assets is most important. But the line of the market's at an all-time high, a crash is coming, is really, really scary, and that brings too much emotion to the plate when really historically it's probably going to go up again tomorrow.
Yeah, it always goes up and to the right. It's just a matter of how fast. And
right.
Whether there's
it's a yo-yo going up an escalator, right? I mean, you're on the escalator, and the stairs, are really the yo-yo on the string.
So how do you help people think beyond investing and think more towards life goals? Like, I think a lot of people can just look at individual investments and kind of think really short term versus like thinking, how do I create these life components that I'm looking for? How do you help people navigate that?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is having the conversation, number one, and then bringing analysis to the table of saying, okay, if this is really what you want to accomplish, and this is true of your income, what you can save, and what you currently have, we're really a lot of times trying to tell people, yes, this objective, this goal of purchasing this property or retiring or selling that you think is 5 to 10 years out, well, hey, maybe we should pull the trigger today. And so a lot of times we're bringing these goals to life through analysis and projections and really Monte Carlo planning as well, of really giving a probability analysis of, hey, this is obviously consistent assumptions, but what if we did disturb this plan a little bit? Are you still going to be okay? If we stress test this plan, are you still going to be okay? And so I think giving people clarity through conservative projections on where they're headed gives them the ability to make decisions and be confident in those decisions. And so we're always talking about goals that people have, and that can be professional or it can be personal. It really doesn't matter. But if we can make sure that we can illustrate their plan is in alignment and we're continuing to move this plan forward, it'll allow them to make some decisions on behalf of, living life, and what they want to do. And so we're very much supporter of telling people to spend money if they have the ability to, and don't worry about, saving more if you don't have to.
So there's a lot of talk in the world today around things becoming so unaffordable for the younger generation, housing and just the cost of things in the world, right? So what do you tell the younger generation? How are you helping the young investor try to position themselves for all the things in life that they're going to want to accomplish?
Yeah, I think if you're young, it's similar with anything. It's similar with growing a business. It's similar with how you become better at something. Consistency is the most important thing. Consistency in what you're doing on a monthly basis that you can replicate and continue to do, and then also just I think there's not necessarily a spending problem for everyone, but live within your means, and that is becoming harder. That is very relevant. My wife and I just bought a house. It's not the easiest thing to do as a younger family, but it's still possible to live within your means and be consistent and hold yourself accountable. You don't have to keep up with the Joneses, but at the end of the day, if you can just be consistent with what you're putting away, why you're doing it, connect to the why always. Are we putting money away just because, or are we putting money away because we want to retire, or we want to send our child to college, or we want to buy this house? Connect to the why. That makes the consistency more important, but don't try to time everything. You're never going to be right, and don't try to pick everything correct because you're never going to be right, or maybe you will once or twice, but then that third one's coming and it might be tough. So consistency and creating habits.
That's great. That's great advice. And creating those habits and just getting used to it. I mean, we live in such a consumer-driven society. It's a lot of temptation out there to go out and buy a $6 coffee every morning and to eat out all the time. And those things kind of erode your future hopes and dreams. So I think the more you can just start putting good habits in place and just kind of set it and forget it.
Absolutely.
It's going to be a lot easier because you need that time horizon. You need that long time.
Yeah.
So the sooner you can start, obviously the better too. All right. Well, we're going to take our final break. And when we come back, we'll talk a little bit about James's family as well as what he sees for the future of Prism Financial. You're listening to the Business Blueprint. Welcome back to the Business Blueprint and happy 4th of July week. We are visiting with James Hendricks, who's the founder of Prism Financial. James, I want to ask you, so you are newly a husband of a couple of years, right? And,
yep.
And a father now of a 1-year-old. So how has being a husband and a father changed your perspective on life and on business?
Oh boy, that's a full, or that's a question that deserves a long answer. But I'd say, to be honest, completely changed. I think the purpose I have going to work every day is completely different than what it used to be. I'm very fulfilled with the fact that my wife can stay home with our daughter, and that really what we're building in this business is not just for myself, it's for our clients and for my family, and I think that's been super rewarding. And it also, to be candid, I wonder what I was doing before, because I work probably less throughout the week than I did before, and we're more efficient, more productive, and
so you've been able to find a good balance.
Absolutely.
So what was the key to finding that for you?
Time on task, and just really from a business perspective, taking a realistic look at what do I need to be doing on a daily basis, and what is probably considered maybe wasting time at this point. And
that's such a good. I hear a lot of separating the signal from the noise on social media, and it's so true, because so much of life that comes at you is just noise.
100%.
And it sounds like you've been able to eliminate the noise.
Yeah, and just be very purpose driven. I want to be able to come home to my wife and daughter, at a reasonable time every day, while also still grow a business and still make decisions to hire and build and scale a business. And so, being very intentional with my time when I'm in the office, and then it goes back to really what we were talking about earlier. Is I don't deserve or our clients don't deserve to have me take on every single client, because we're not going to be able to service them correctly. So finding a good fit of client is also important too, and people that we're working with. So just everything comes down to intentionality. But yeah, it's been the best change, but the by far biggest change in my life, obviously, over the last 2 years. So, and then another one on the way. Yep. So the madness is continuing.
Just dive right in, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of pressure in the world today to have two earner households, and obviously your wife and you and your wife are bucking that trend. What was it like making that decision for the two of you, and how did you guys decide that was the path you're going to take?
Yeah, I would say I don't know if proud's the right word, but I'm proud of how we dated, and we understood our perspectives and our philosophies and really what we believed. So the decision ultimately was fairly easy because we'd already had the conversation far in advance. And so once we knew that our first was on the way and we got closer to her arriving, it was a very seamless decision and easy transition to have my wife stay home. And I feel super fortunate that we can. I'm probably lucky to have been 5 years into building a business as well. It would have been really, really tough to be in the same position we are today had we met 5 years prior. So maybe that's God doing God's work and bringing us together when we're ready. And so that was also very fortunate, but by no means has it been without stress or without tougher days, but it's very rewarding.
Awesome. I think it's such a amazing thing to have parents at home, and my mom was always home, and my wife and I are both entrepreneurs, and we kind of fly by the seat of our pants. And there's many moments where my wife would love to be at home and has a lot of regrets, and so I think it's a great choice that you guys have made. And you seem very content in that, and you know what you're doing, and that's awesome.
100%. And it's tough on her too. It's a tough job. I mean, little ones aren't easy, right? Yeah. And so there's definitely days where I need to come home and be pretty active, and so and we're happy to do that. So yeah.
Awesome. So what excites you most about the future of your business? What do you got in store here?
I just think the so much excites me. I think the value we can continue to provide to clients is massive. I think that there's this misconception that AI might take over our career or our industry, and I really think it's only going to enhance it. I think the systems and processes are going to be really, really good that we can continue to leverage for the betterment of the service that we can bring. And then that's also part of the wealth transfer right now, and I think there's a significant opportunity to be a landing ground for older advisors that want to have a succession for their book and their business. I think what part of our vision is to be in a position to say yes or no to advisors that are planning to sell or transition and retire. And I think there's
is there a big transition coming in the advisory space?
Absolutely. Everything models kind of the current wealth transfer is, I would say the average age of wealth management advisors is right around 58 to 60. And that's true within Northwestern Mutual's walls. That's true within other walls. And so, not that we want to just scale for the sake of scaling and acquire, because that's not why we're doing it. But I do know that there's probably a fit for some businesses to, have the same philosophy as us, and we might be a landing ground for that. So I think there's so much. I think the value we can continue to bring to our clients if nothing happens in the merger and acquisition space, but I also think there's a significant value there that can be found from that space too.
So you've done a great job in your business so far. You're still a young professional. I don't think you're even 30 yet, if you know what I'm talking about here. What advice would you give young professionals in their careers coming out of college today?
Oh gosh, I think number one, consistency is going to win over anything. Consistency in how you show up and not having things try to happen too quickly. And then the other thing too that's been really important is don't ever think you're too experienced or too old to become a beginner. I think one of our values is to be inquisitive and be proactive, and so we're constantly trying to challenge our thinking and not to just shift philosophies, but more just make sure we're on the front end for our clients at all times and And for young individuals, it takes time to build things. It takes time to build a family. It takes time to build wealth. It takes time to build a business. And so how you show up every day is going to be much more important than, having a really good day and 5 bad ones. And so, just be consistent. Don't put too much pressure on yourself, but show up every day and block out the noise.
Yep. Well, we're running low on time here. I want to ask you before we leave, if anyone is interested in working with you, where can they find you? Would you have a website?
Yeah, I have a website, my first.lastname.nm.com. And then my email is my first.lastname@nm.com as well. So.
Awesome. Well, thank you for taking the time today. This was very informative, and it was my first time meeting you, so it was great to get to know you as well. Thanks for joining us on the Business Blueprint. Have a great 4th of July week, and we will see you next time.